There was that 3-week stretch where the offense seemed to be humming and Sam Howell was playing really good football. And the last 3 weeks or month really hasn't been good because they've lost their last 4 games and the offense hasn't looked as good. But even in a week, you see the change in the fan base because I saw that Grant and Danny talked about it yesterday and there was an article up on thefandc.com. So I posted that on our Junkies Facebook page. Give us a follow there. And then I posted a couple polls on our Instagram. So you can do it in a post and in a story, whatever. But last week, I think it was 63% said no, don't want Eric Bieniemy to be the new head coach. It was almost 3,000 votes. So pretty significant sample size. Well, this week, if you look at the polls, it's between 70 and 84% they don't want Eric Bieniemy. And I guess it's because you had the Cowboys game where they put up 10 points. Mm-hmm. You had this game where they put up 15 points. So the bloom is off the rose here in Washington for Eric Bieniemy, but there are rumors swirling that he may be a head coaching candidate in Chicago.
Yeah, he has ties with Ryan Poles, who is the GM in Chicago, who was part of the Chiefs front office. Mm-hmm. So that tie, I guess, explains the interest, at least at this point. And I mean, there's no way Matt Eberflus is going to be still the head coach at the end of the season.
I wouldn't think.
Like, they're going to throw him overboard, and they'll conduct a search. It sounds like Bieniemy's will be on that list if he's not already the favorite at this point.
800-636-1067 if you want to chime in on the MGM National Harbor listener lines. If Johnny Cake Sawville is the GM of the Washington Commanders.
Oh, it's such a powerful title. And
you're
position.
the GM.
Yeah, GM.
You get to pick your coach.
Big silly.
Will you give Bieniemy an interview?
What's my salary? What's my salary as a GM before I'm making this important decision?
$4.75 million.
Oh,
dude, that's
$5 million. Okay, now. Okay.
Not quite $5 million a year.
That's still great.
You're not a big silly GM. You're unproven.
Okay, that's fine. I'll take medium level GM for $4.7 million. Okay, what's my decision? What's my question?
Simply, do you grant him an interview, or have you seen enough of Bieniemy in the offense?
You mean interview for the open
Commanders
position for Ron Rivera?
Yes,
I would interview him, but I feel like within a year, I've probably seen all I need to see. I will grant him an interview, and then I'll interview another 8 or 10 candidates, and I'll make my decision.
Including Ben Johnson, of course.
Well, Ben Johnson is definitely on my short list, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I would interview him, but it's hard to give him the job.
Sounds like he's behind the 8 ball for you.
I think so.
I mean, isn't he kind of already conducting his interview week by week?
Kind of. Yeah, kind of.
Like with his performance and the offense's performance.
And there have been times where offenses really look good, but It looks like teams are adjusting. Now the offensive line's not good. I get it. Receivers aren't very good either. And maybe it's because of, they're not getting open, or maybe it's because the quarterback's not getting them the ball at certain times. I don't know. Now, you'd have to break down the X's and O's for me. But, I think this is kind of an in-season interview right now.
I would like to see how his offense would work with an optimal offensive line protecting Sam Howell, but you can't do that. Like, we're not living in utopia. We're living in the real world. And look, you have to put some of that blame on the offensive line on Bieniemy, because he had to be the guy that was vouching for Andrew Wiley to come over here and get signed to the big free agent deal that he signed. I mean, that was a guy he was familiar with in Kansas City, and he's been a disappointment since he's been here in D.C.
It is kind of crazy that the last time you did that poll, it was in the 60s.
And now it's jumped
it's almost 85%.
As high as 85%. You can vote on our Instagram page, Sports Junkies
and if
Radio.
If they look like butt again next week, or in 2 weeks when they play the Rams, it'll probably go higher.
Well, here are a couple responses. You can chime in again at 800-636-1067. Want to get a temperature check on Eric Bieniemy, who apparently may be interviewed for Chicago once the season is over. Do you want him interviewed here in D.C. to be your next head coach? Jeff on the Facebook page says, nope. No one on this roster, nor the coaches or the front office, should be retained. None of them have won here. He's had the shortest tenure, though, so I guess at least interview him. Matt says, yes. Head coach is more of a leadership role, and he has proven he can be an emotional leader. He can hand over play calling while still overseeing the offense. He doesn't have to call the plays. So there is that. Like, a lot of people seem to like him. All right. The results of the offense aren't necessarily great. They're about what they were last year, right? I think actually, if you look at points per game, are they below where they were last year now?
It might be now.
I think the real damning testimony that he's putting out week by week, and I know it's a function of the offensive line being poor, is that he hasn't elevated the play of his top two wideouts. Like, you figured with Bieniemy coming in, jump-starting the offense, like, you'd think he would lean into Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, and that hasn't been the case. Now, you can blame the offensive line, but then you can also improvise and adapt if you're Bieniemy, run those guys on different routes, find different ways to get them the ball, to keep them involved in the offense. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care how sideways the game goes, Terry McLaurin should never be catchless in a game. That should just never happen.
No, that's an embarrassment.
So, like, that, the fact that he hasn't gotten those guys more involved, to me, would be the primary reason that maybe you interview him, but you don't really seriously consider him as the head coach going forward.
If we had done this poll 6 weeks ago to a month ago,
right,
it would have been 85 to 90% yes.
Well, because they weren't 4-9 then. Now they're 4-9. The offense is sputtering, and people are losing faith.
So they're averaging 20 a game. And I don't know where they were last year.
Weren't they like 18.9 with Scott Turner?
So they're basically
like 19.
Yeah, so to call it a point better. But we thought that this offense was going to be in the 23 to 25 points per game.
Well,
range.
that's what we were hoping they would become.
Yeah. And, we thought, all right, you're at 23 or 25 a game, you're going to win, you're going to be in the mix for a wild card.
Right.
But at 20 a game, that's bad. I'm sorry, it's just bad.
It's not great.
I mean, there's only about 8 or 9 teams that are worse than that.
Right.
All right, let's go to the phones. Valdez is going to need your help. 800-636-1067. Let's go to line 1. Paul is in D.C. Paul, what do you think?
Hey, I think I would like to see him get a shot at it, man, because we running him out of town here, man. So, and you listen to what Ron Rivera is doing, man. He's kind of like sabotaging the whole thing anyway, man. Listen to this guy. This guy is actually poisoning the base that we have in the locker room. But I like to see the enemy get a shot at it.
How's he sabotaging the offense, though? Hasn't the enemy been given autonomy to do whatever he wants?
He can do whatever he wants with the offense.
Yeah. He can do whatever he wants, but listen to Ron Rivera's tone. Listen to how he's talking, man. Listen to the player thing, man. I just like to see if he can do it in Chicago, man. That's the main thing.
All right, he might have to do it in Chicago.
I can't blame Ron for like the tone that he's taking on. Like if you knew that you're gonna be fired in a month, like would you be putting in full effort every single day? Like even a guy as accomplished as him in his career. I mean, he was a player on a Super Bowl winning team, and the guy is going to put forth effort and heart into what he does. But like if you know it's coming to an end in early January, are you really doing everything you can within that last month?
I feel like Bieniemy would be successful in another place. He kind of wasn't just given the tools to succeed. I feel like he was kind of behind the 8 ball. And this isn't a knock against Eric Bieniemy, but the problem with Bieniemy and this franchise in particular and this fan base is that he was handpicked kind of by Ron to get the offense kickstarted. Mm-hmm. This whole franchise has the stench of Ron on it. He was handpicked by Ron, and it's no fault to Eric Bieniemy.
Right.
It's just
an opportunity for him.
It was an opportunity, but he just every single player, every single coach, every single front office person has the stench of Dan from the past, and then was translated down to Ron. Eric Bieniemy just kind of has that stink on him. He has to go. he has to go get it off of him somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what else he has to do in the last month?
That's no fault to Eric Bieniemy. He was just under the umbrella of a crappy coach
in the final month,
and maybe a crappy roster.
In my
a crappy organization.
Yeah.
To up his optics and make him look better to other suitors, he's got to, in my opinion, he's got to go balls to the wall for the last month. Like. He's got to have this team
throw the ball more.
No, I don't. It doesn't necessarily mean throw the ball more. He's got to find ways to get guys in the end zone to up those scoring numbers.
And you can't score 15
like, you improve this offense from 19 points per game to 20 points per game, that's
Whoopie
sorry,
doo.
that's just not good enough.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a more wide open Bieniemy over the last month.
He's guilty by association.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Being kind of attached at the hip, but Ron was a career blunder.
But he can also explain that away to the Bears, and he could say it's just a 1-year dalliance with Ron Rivera. I took it because it was a good opportunity. It's just a 1-year thing. Don't hold this against me for the rest of my career. That would be my take.
But
Well, the Bears might have the number 1 pick, right? They're going to have the number 1 pick.
They are going to have the number 1 pick.
Right, so they might be like, look, I was working with Sam Howell. Now you're going to give me Caleb. He's a la Patrick Mahomes. Look at my resume in KC.
Sure.
All right, let's go to Teddy in D.C. on line 2. Teddy, you're on with the Junkies. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. I've been listening to you guys for a long time.
Thank you, Teddy.
I'm one of your blind listeners.
All right.
Thank you.
Sometimes I agree with you, sometimes I don't.
Let me ask you this. Since you're blind, this is just a stereotypical question. Is your sense of hearing heightened because you can't see?
No, not really. It's just that I pay more attention to what people are saying.
Okay. I had to ask about these.
Maybe we should poke Eric's eyes out.
More than that. But anyway, I would keep Bieniemy whether he's the coach or the OC. See, there was nothing wrong with Scott Turner. It all fell back on the coach. And he was thrown. Bieniemy was thrown under the bus when he got here. When Ron came over the news and said that players are complaining to him.
Right.
That's an in-house thing. You don't do that to the outside, tell the outside people that. So he was thrown on the bus right then and there. Now, Scott Turner and Bieniemy basically have scoring just about the same amount of points. So there's nothing wrong there. What the problem is the head coach. See, if you're the head coach, I tell you to do something, you don't do it, you're gone. I can see that just by hearing. What's going on the field. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it is in life. Your boss tell you to do something on the job, you don't do it, you're gone. So I'm looking at Scott Turner and Bieniemy, they're doing what the coach says, okay? When they got rid of those 2 defensive ends, that screwed the team. Because I knew that Jack Del Rio was doing what Ron wanted him to do. Because if you can look at last year, you see they were terrible. They were tearing the offenses up. But when Ron tell Dio to do something, he does it, and it screws up the whole team. Now, you're talking about bringing in Harbaugh, a coach from Michigan. Mm-hmm. He's bringing the baggage with him. But also, you're paying him the money that you could have paid both of those 2 defensive ends to keep.
Well,
And
that's a whole separate thing, Teddy. Appreciate your call.
Thanks for calling, man.
Have a great Christmas.
I mean, they were kind of in a no-win situation there with the ends. They had to make a decision there. You're not bringing both those guys back on big contracts. You got to get something for them. And we knew the defense was going to be – look, the defense wasn't good with them. We knew it was going to be worse without them.
You look at the statistics. They're not that different than last year, whether you're looking at yards per game or points per game. And all of a sudden, he's dropped to, in our polls, 60% don't want him. That was a week ago. Now it's like 70 to 85% don't want him.
That's why you've got to grade a coach or a player over a season,
right,
and not jump to conclusions like a lot of people did with Howell.
Right, the jump.
I'm not saying Sam Howell can't be the guy for next year, but you jump to conclusions when he throws for 325 yards and doesn't turn the ball over, and you say, "Oh, see, he's the guy," but then he plays like ass and throws pick sixes. You've got to judge him over 17 games.
Everybody
and you got to do that same thing with Bieniemy.
We told everybody before the season started, if you're gonna hitch your wagon to Sam Howell, there are going to be highs and there are going to be lows to a guy who has 1 start under his belt heading into the 2023 season.
Yeah,
you knew he was going to have dud games like the game against the Bills. Like it was just an abject disaster. You knew that those were in store, but how do you navigate through, like you said, the entire season? Does he show progress? Is he a guy that you're going to be able to start in 2024?
Look at how well Jake Browning played on Monday night against Jacksonville. He was 32 for 37. Okay?
Yeah, he had a great game.
Is Jake Browning going to be a starter in the NFL? No, he's going to be a backup.
Probably not going to be a starter, but he's made himself a lot of money just by that performance.
Maybe as a backup, but you just can't jump to conclusions after 1 or 2 games or 8 or 10 or whatever. You've got to judge a player or coach by entire season.
And some of the Bieniemy defenders have been saying, hey, Maybe the offense hasn't completely turned around, but it's not his guys. These are guys he inherited. But let's go back to the calls, 800-636-1067.
Is it a coincidence? This is just a tangent. Is it a coincidence that Kansas City's production has taken a pretty big dip since Bieniemy left?
A lot of people point to that.
I mean, maybe he had more impact on that offense than people were giving him credit for. Because before he left, it was a lot of, well, it's all Nagy and Andy Reid. Bieniemy doesn't do much, but he leaves, and then they're scoring a touchdown less per game.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some correlation there.
All right, let's go to line 7. Gary's in Culpeper. Gary, you're on with the Junkies. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Hello, Gary.
I think we need to go young. As far as I hate to say, starting all over again, but since we've got new people in the system, new.
So you don't want anybody who's currently with the organization like an Eric Bieniemy. You want a younger college coach
He's ready
type.
to start fresh, ready to turn the page.
Well, he wants a coordinator.
I kind of agree
He
with.
wants a hot coordinator.
With Valdez. Like, if you're Josh Harris, you may grant Bieniemy an interview, but are you really going to hire a Ron holdover to be the head coach going forward? And I'd be stunned if that happened.
He bet on the wrong horse. You know,
Right.
he did. Eric Bieniemy bet on the wrong horse.
Where was he going to go?
Yeah, like it was the only horse he could bet on. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. He just stay there.
His market
Then
was
his
kind of
contract
soft
was up.
from what we remember. Like there weren't 10 teams beating down Eric Bieniemy's door to come be the offensive coordinator.
But
There was one.
But
this one.
But hold on. Do we know? I know his contract was up, but maybe Andy Reid would have said, "All right, you got no other opportunities. You can come back here and still be the OC."
Well, I think it was clear that Nagy was going to be slid into that spot or a big part of their offense moving forward.
There's got to be a reason then,
Right. Like,
I don't know if it's a personality thing.
Maybe he'd fallen out of favor in Kansas City.
Maybe Bieniemy went to Reid and said, "Bro, look, I've been working under you for somebody. I want to be the guy.
Right.
Like,
I think that was the case.
I want to be the guy calling 100% of the plays.
Right.
And Reid probably said, "Sorry."
No, I got to have Nagy, who's going to make our offense 6 points worse calling the plays.
Now they've got no receivers. They got no receivers besides Kelsey.
Let's go to Scott in Crofton on line 6. Scott, you're on with the Junkies. Good morning.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Scott.
So, I mean, at this point, why not give them a shot? I mean, we regressed for 25 straight years, new owner or not. You put in a new coordinator, you got to learn a whole new offense, a whole new scheme. You've got just a lot of stuff you have to worry about. And, I mean, he's been here for a year. I don't know how many good quarterbacks have come out after their first year, after either learning a system or learning new coaches. And Sam's been here for 2 years now. So if EB can still call the plays as a head coach or have a dedicated coordinator, I mean, why not give him a shot? It can't get any worse at this point.
So you're okay
Thank you,
with
Scott.
All right, Scott, real quick, are you okay with Hal coming back?
Yeah. I mean, look, you're not going to get any better if you just keep replacing quarterbacks. I mean, it's not like you're just going to wake up one morning and have your franchise quarterback who hasn't played here yet. So, I mean, if you're not going to practice and you're not going to have him in here, then why,
Kind of depends on who it is. I mean, Houston probably found their franchise quarterback.
Let's go to our pal Dennis in
And by the way,
Ruston on line 3.
that quarterback now leads the league in passing yards.
Yes.
C.J. Stroud.
Dennis, what's up? Also, the thing that's impressive with him is I think it's 4-1.
Hold on, Dennis.
4-1 touchdown to interception ratio.
Yeah.
You can check that, but that's the bigger one to me.
You're right. It's 20-5. What's up, Dennis?
I think that, I agree with a lot of the other callers from earlier, the one a few minutes ago, that, Bieniemy, he just wasn't surrounded by anything. I mean, he had nothing to work with. He has nothing to work with, and the same thing goes with Hal. Hal's, he's made some goofy mistakes, big-time rookie mistakes, but when you don't have anything to work with around you, when you have no protection, if you've had your bell rung 3 or 4 or 5 times, and you accidentally throw a ball because the defense completely read your play and it goes into the defender's hands and he runs for, a pick 6. If you get your bell rung 9 or 10 times, it's going to happen to anybody. He's surrounded by junk. When you're surrounded by junk, you play like junk. And that's the way it goes. And I thank you for taking my call, and that's my opinion. I think we should bring Hal back, and Bieniemy should at least be given a chance.
Thank you,
guys
Dennis.
You guys
All right,
take it
Dennis.
easy.
Dennis wants to run it back with Hal and Bieniemy.
All right, well, you know what? He's part of the 16%.
He is in the minority.
He definitely is.